Do you know how I know that I'm a professional Let's Player? I turn my phone onto airplane mode so I don't get distracted browsing Tinder. What's up, guys? It's me. I haven't decided on a name still yet. It's between Shifter or Buttface, or you can just call me Jonah. Anyways, welcome to The Company of Myself, a game by Eli Last Name. In case you didn't hear, Flash is dying. And so I'm going to be starting up a new series on here where I catalog some highly influential Flash games from my past. Games that have made me think and thought, you know what, I could do game design. I can start analyzing games. These are made by like one or two people. How hard could it be? So let's just jump into this and see if I can speed read. If you have a minute, I'd like to tell you a bit about myself. The first thing you need to understand is that I'm alone. I've been alone for a pretty long time now. I'm used to it. I'm content. Before I became more or less a hermit, I found that I had two passions in life. One was performing. Even today, when I find that I can't relate to others, I can still stand in front of them and make them laugh or surprise them. The irony is strong enough to taste. It doesn't taste good. In case you're wondering, my second passion was a girl named Catherine, but I'll get to her later. I generally face the same day-to-day problems as every other person, except every other person gets stuck. They have friends and associates to back them up. I don't know if you want to hear me describe it adamantly, so I'll use an interesting allegory. I used to find myself in the company of others, now I find myself only in the company of myself. I missed some stuff there. That is a lot of reading to get through. And this game has more reading. Also, I can't control it with WASD, so I gotta use my laptop's dinky little arrow keys. My attention is stolen by a green square on the other side of the room. I want to be its friend more than anything. And the text disappeared, so I don't get to read the rest of it. Oh, I guess it was triggered when I passed this little midpoint here. The square doesn't react to my approach, does it not notice me, or maybe it's timing. Which would be worse? Up close, I can see that the green square is actually a door. I think that we can be friends anyways. I decide to push the spacebar to move to the next room. So this game is third wall breaky. Or fourth wall. There's only two dimensions, so it can break 3 or 4. It's telling me how to jump. I guess I'm going to have to be really on point with the reading. Take that, platforms! I decide that Mr. Door is a better friend than the platforms. I also note that I can pause the game by pressing P or the escape key. Now that risk is involved, jumping on platforms doesn't seem as easy to me. I start thinking about how awful it would be to fall. Luckily, I know that I can push R key anytime to restart the level. I find myself proud of and possibly surprised by my ability to leap over harrowing gaps. Even from back here, I can tell that the ledge ahead is too high to jump. I begin to wonder what would happen if I pressed the spacebar before I completed a level. And this is the one core mechanic. You get to create little shadow clones. I feel confused and a bit tingly, but mostly just confused. I briefly attempt to think of something to think. Nothing worthwhile emerges. I haven't talked to anyone lately, but at least I can solve my own problems. So, the game basically works as, which I know that this had to have come out after Braid, but this works as one of the Braid. Oh, well, shit. Oh, and ominous music now. That they just switch between the two different tracks, but this works as one of Braid's subworld works, where you create time loops, but unlike in Braid, you can have multiple loops going at the same time. So it builds its puzzles around that. Unfortunately, it also leads to a bit of tedium, like in this. I would have probably only had you have to make 3 clones, but here they make you make 4. Oh well, it's using up the available screen real estate, I guess, is how you want to view it. At least this gives me more time to talk. I also believe that this game was, or I have to assume that this game was an inspiration for Geronimo! No, a game called The Adventures of PB Winterbottom, which has the exact same shadow clone stuff. The area down below, so if I press the A key for activate, and then loop, I'm assuming that my shadow clone will be able to pass through the door. But yeah, I really liked that this game was, you know, taking the world's simplest platform mechanics. I'm grateful for my above-average ability to work alone. I notice a strange force field in this room. I become gradually more curious. Hey, guess what? I already know the answer to this. It's that my shadow can't pass through the force field. Oops. My shadow can't pass through the force field, but I can. And I missed whatever that was saying. Understanding the force field, I noticed that this room's field is greenish instead of pinkish, which means I can't pass through, but I bet you my clone can. Oh, and no text. I'm just going to pause here while there is no text to read and say that this game also suffers from pretentious indie syndrome, where they're trying to tell an interesting story and it kind of comes off as wanky. Walking forward, if I just jump a bunch and keep pressing forward, and then stop and press A and then restart, I think my guy will climb the stairs. I could have done that in an elegant solution, but I chose not to. Booyah. Eventually he'll stop and he'll press that lever. Luckily for me, no one was watching as I hopped around like a crazy person. I was watching, and whoever's watching this was watching. I searched for reasons as to why I don't desire companionship. So I'm going to fall through this. Then I'm going to wait. Then I'm going to walk across here. And then I'm going to wait. And I think what's going to happen is that my clone's going to walk down there and wait, and then I can walk on my clone. Or rather, I can just sit here. Thankfully, you magnet to the top of people. I settle on avoidance of the issue. I can't... I find myself unable to leave the question alone. Why can I not be with people? I instantly notice how similar this room looks to the previous one, and I almost feel cheated until I realize that my previous tactics won't work again. Yes, so now I need to fall down here. Wait for quite a while. No, I need to wait for my future self, who is not a clone. Then I fall down here. Then I wait for my future self to walk across the room. And then I jump and press forward. And that should get me there. Let's see if I did that correct. But yeah, pretentious indie syndrome has really struck here, where the story it's trying to tell is, oh, I'm so alone, and mechanics is metaphor, and blah blah blah. But we'll get there. It doesn't take long for me to understand that I'm going to need some timing to get through here. Yes, okay. So, press the button, press the button, press the button, press the button. And now, already failed. Thankfully, I can just restart. Okay, so you're walking up, then you oh, I almost didn't make that one. Damn it. My past selves will show me when I'm going too early. Oop! So damn close. So damn close. Too early. Now I'm starting to lose myself in the crowd. That was a little late. So walk up and I press the button. Walk up and I press the button. There we go. Okay. I've gotten used to the idea of solving mental problems, but I still enjoy testing my physical abilities here and there. I think back to the first day that Catherine and I met. Our path converged, and suddenly we were a team. Now we've got a weird film grain, which I really think is going to screw up my encoding. And pressing space now means that I get to control Catherine. Her approach was quiet, as was my response. The connection was instant and unmistakable, a team. But it's a neat way to do a flashback. But yeah, this game just basically, there are no enemies, there's no real challenge to it. Mutual. And yeah, we just keep solving problems between the two sides. Perfect. Oops. Pressed A instead of space. I wasn't ready to let it go. I wonder what's going to happen. We face the problems. Oh yes, and the other thing is that because Catherine doesn't have a top hat, I can't stand on her. But because I have a top hat, she can absolutely stand on me. I was underappreciative, plain and simple. I don't understand how much I needed her, how much she needed me. There we go. It was perfect. Everything. It was all perfect. And now don't pull that lever until I get over there, Catherine. That would be really rude of you. You would end up killing me. And now I helped her and she helped me. Mutual. But like, you see how the puzzles are at least somewhat interesting order of operations and simple platforming mechanics that actually feel pretty decent. Like, this is not the worst feeling platformer I've ever played. I never suspected the end to come so quickly. As with most indie games, the end does come rather quick. Well, there's no order of operations way around this. Bye, Catherine! She was gone! And now I find myself alone. I can't handle talking to people anymore. What is the trick of this one? Ah, yes! Visualize an overexcited man yelling, checkpoint. There we go. Okay, so if you hadn't noticed, we're always spawning on a flower, and when I passed that flower that hadn't bloomed yet, I was able to get to a checkpoint. Something else that hasn't really come up yet, but I'm wondering if my mouse will be visible, is this right here. Shows how many clones you get to make. So sometimes you're limited to just one, as I was in this. I grudgingly consider how the ability to start over from a different perspective in life would have been helpful earlier in life. Maybe I could have let Catherine not meet me in the first place. Interesting. And I continue like this. Oh, this one is tricky, so I'm just going to jump a bunch of times till I have a nice stack of clones. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to... Because every time you jump, it pushes the clones down, so... No, I'm going to wait on the... how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Every time I restart, it looks like the grass is procedurally generated there. That is a weird touch. Okay. Anyways. Jump, jump, jump. Jump, jump. No, so I wait for a little bit, and then I 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. No. Let's see. There's a timing in this. There's a timing in this. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3. Oops, I did that backwards. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Can I get a higher stack? And is that gonna work? How high can I get these guys? Let's try one more. It can't really hurt. They're already as stacked as high as they'll go. Okay, and now if I just stand here and wait for the whole stack to climb on top of my head, then I should be able to walk across that green barrier. Damn, I got some height on that one. Yeah, I really like that they magged it like that. This is awesome. They slip and they slide, but they don't fall down. Whoop! So, a little bit of a tricky challenge. What? Don't leave yet. I have more to say. I really do. And dead. And dead. And dead. And dead. But if you just keep running across this and jumping, you can get some actually pretty good distance off of your clones. And eventually, one of you is going to make it over there. If you just keep varying it. Swim through a sea of clones, as it were. Hard to do, but we'll get there eventually. Yes! Alright. Are you really leaving? Yes, actually, that was the end of the game. I've been tasked with psychoanalyzing Jack after his mental breakdown. In general, he recalls his life very accurately. The things he says line up with all of the records. The first problem is that he doesn't seem to remember any of my visits. I've talked with him once a week for the past 8 years, and he always tells me the same thing as if we've never met before. He describes himself as a loner, and this makes a whole lot of sense, as he has been kept in solitary confinement for the duration of his stay at the hospital. He always briefly talks about his life, and eventually gets into the story of how he lost a loved one, Catherine. He understands that she has died, and he certainly feels at least somewhat responsible, but he can't recall he murdered her. He was found buried in the backyard in a green package. Evidently, it was the only box large enough to use as a coffin that Jack could find. Also of note were the 2 flowers he planted next to the makeshift grave. He considered her death to be the reason that he can't talk to people anymore. I suppose that in a way, he is correct. This will be my final report on Jack. I don't find any reason to believe that he will recover from his current state of severe mental illness, and he is far too dangerous to himself and others to allow his release. Oh wow, the cute, clever indie game had a dark twist, and the story was told from an unrelatable narrator. What do you know? The end. There's only really one thing in that game that I would like to comment on post the game being done, is that we had one small addition to the mechanics of the flower as checkpoint that was never expanded on. So maybe there was a little bit more room for that to go, but I think the length of the game overall was perfect. You get the base idea of the mechanic, you get a couple of twists on it with the forced field, then you have a flashback to a new perspective to look at a completely separate mechanic that builds on the way the first one is portrayed, and then finally a coda of some challenging puzzles. And I suddenly don't even have a person to tell my story to anymore. So, yeah, that was The Company of Myself. An indie game I played probably over 10 years ago, I want to say. It was formative. And I will see you guys here for the next round of Flash games whenever I get around to uploading that. Thanks very much. See ya.